authors from our region, and this aligns with the center's mission to support and celebrate the rich diversity and the many talents in our Western New York community. Since that time, we've greeted over 16 living authors, introducing them to our docents, to museum members, and to our friends. So, in the pre COVID days, which hopefully we're going to go back to at some
Mhm.
point in time, maybe as some kind of hybrid, we would meet in the boardroom with coffee and brownies and wine and cheese.
Mm.
But now that we're online, at least we have an ability to reach out to an even wider audience. So that was one good thing that happened. But once this pandemic is behind us, as I said, we do plan on moving back into the boardroom. But we'll keep those of you who like being online online. Tonight is going to be a very exciting night. It's a truly compelling story with the Arthur Duncan Esquire and his book Felon-Attorney. I know you're going to enjoy tonight's discussion. As I said, the story is very compelling, as is he, and we're so lucky to have him with us tonight. But before we begin, as always, I'd like to introduce Michaela Waros to you. She's also an educator at the center, and she's going to share the mechanics of tonight's program. So, Michaela?
All right, thanks. So just a quick tutorial of the webinar for tonight. Use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen to ask questions to the Arthur. And then throughout the night, I will ask those questions to him. Please use the chat box to chat with any and all the participants here. And this is also streaming live on Facebook. So if you're joining there in the comment section on Facebook, I will also be checking that. So if you have questions, ask them there. And as always, we are recording these. So if you missed tonight's event and you want to watch it or you can't watch the whole thing, please contact us and we can give you a recording.
Thanks, Michaela. Tonight, the facilitator is a faithful Birchfield docent and former author to the center, Linda Dragem, and she is going to facilitate our event tonight. And she also has the honor of introducing the author. So Linda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, I'm really delighted to introduce the Arthur Duncan. He's got a very inspiring story. And as a retired teacher from Buffalo, I'm happy to say that he's a product of one of our elementary schools in Buffalo. And I guess the title capsulizes his book, but he's got a lot to tell us about his evolution as a human being and as a contributor to society. So, the Arthur, do you want to say something about the clip or?
This is the clip is a story that Claudine Ewing did on me back in 2016, and it's kind of summarizes my story a bit, and then we can get into more when we come back.
Okay.
All right, and I will share that clip with everyone now.
From the streets to the courtroom. Sounds like a fictional tale, but it's not.
It is the real, true story of a local man, and he's not shy about his story. More importantly, it's one he hopes people will listen to and be inspired by.
Channel 2's Claudine Ewing brings us the story of a man's triumph despite adversity.
Everybody has their issues.
Everyone has a story. It doesn't matter if you're the so-called average Joe or among society's elite. And never judge a book by its cover, because in its many pages, there's sometimes a story you wouldn't expect.
My story is a bit extreme.
Meet the Arthur Duncan, born in Los Angeles, raised between LA and Buffalo.
And my father went off to Vietnam.
And that's when the Arthur's mom shuffled him off to Buffalo to live with his grandparents.
I was back and forth from Buffalo to LA continuously all the way through elementary school. I mean, I did kindergarten in Buffalo, first grade in LA.
Attending various schools, but high school was in LA, where he played sports, but still.
There was no stability. We would live in South Central one time, then I go back, we're in Inglewood. I was just thrust into this gang culture, Crips and Blood.
He lived in the Bloods neighborhood, but went to school in the Crips neighborhood, similar to what was portrayed in the movie Straight Outta Compton.
One day on the bus, I had on a purple Lakers jacket, and a Crip came on the bus, put a knife to my throat, made me take my jacket off.
Meanwhile, at home, Dad was gone. Mom had a drug-using boyfriend.
Then it got so bad that the drug dealers threatened to kill everybody in the house if this drug debt wasn't paid.
After high school, Duncan was back in Buffalo.
The guys I grew up with at 31 and around in my neighborhood, they were hustling. And I told myself that, I would never sell drugs because of what I went through in LA. And I seen, the detriment that it caused to a family. And I kind of got drawn into that. I started off selling some marijuana.
By age 22, Duncan was selling crack.
I knew I was wrong, and I always would tell myself I'm going to stop at this particular date, or I'm going to stop when I see this amount of money. But I wouldn't stop, and I kept justifying what I was doing.
He was busted when the FBI was watching someone else.
They had tapped his phone, and then they got me on the phone conversation with him.
It wasn't long before Duncan was in handcuffs, then sentenced to 48 months in federal prison.
Did your arrest save your life?
Oh, definitely.
And then a heart-to-heart talk with a relative.
He basically set me down and told me that if I didn't change my life, I was going to die in the streets.
And where are those friends now?
Doing a life sentence. A couple of them passed away.
Not the road Duncan wanted to travel. After all, he was an honor student.
My best was, my intelligence. So even though I didn't know I was going to become an attorney, I knew I had to do something through education.
He enrolled at ECC, where he met a professor who had a profound effect on him.
He said, Arthur, after you get your associates, what are you going to do? I said, I always wanted to be an attorney, but I don't think I can.
Because he had a felony, which he assumed would prevent him from becoming a lawyer, but it didn't. He went to law school at Cleveland State, leaving his family for days.
A lot of people thought I was wasting my time. Like, we've never seen nobody, an ex-drug dealer, becoming a lawyer.
At age 43, the Arthur Duncan earned a law degree from UB.
There's a second chance out there that because of one mistake, your life is not over. That, you can turn your life around.
He now speaks at schools.
What advice do you have now for the kids out here on the streets who want to be gangsters?
They've probably heard this before, but there's only two ways out. Jail or death.
He wrote a book about his journey called Felon-Attorney. It's been a long, rough road for his family.
He just wants the right thing. He just wants everyone to be happy and for people to just do the right thing, because he did the wrong thing for so long. But he's seen what doing the right thing could get you.
She says her husband's story is worth listening to.
They should look at it as wow, because this is a man that cares about his family, a hard worker, and you haven't seen the last of him yet. This is just the beginning.
Duncan is a civil defense attorney for the city of Buffalo, defending the city and the Buffalo Board of Education. A long way from the streets to the steps of City Hall, and there's more to come.
And think about what you want to accomplish in life, not what everybody else want to accomplish, not for the neighborhood, not for the block, for you. So when you put yourself first and be the best person that you can be, then everything else will fall in line.
Claudine Ewing, Channel 2 News.
Well, I think I want to ask you first about your family. Your grandparents were very important to you. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, my grandparents, my grandfather, my grandmother, sadly, they didn't live to see me change my life. My grandfather passed away right before I went to jail. And then my grandmother passed away a little bit after I got out of jail. So they didn't live to see me change my life. So, that's always something that was like hard on me, because I disappointed them. And so now that, I'm able to kind of show that, I changed my life, I kind of always, keep them in mind. And I know they looking down on me, and they're proud that I did change my life.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to read a passage from your book?
Yeah. And this passage is This is when I was about to be released from federal prison. The day leading up to that. And basically, I wanted to read this because it goes to my mindset as now I was getting out of jail with no direction. I didn't have any, I only had a high school diploma when I went to jail. Didn't have any job skills, no employment, no nothing. And I was being released back into the same environment. And now I had to basically find a way to survive without going back to jail. So I wrote on page 117, it reads, my release date was December 2nd, and I called Black to let him know when to pick me up. It was a 3-hour ride home, and I was informed the federal prisons would give me 5 hours to report to the halfway house as though I was catching a bus. Knowing I would have 2 hours to kill, naturally, I began to call to see what females I could get with before I had to report to the halfway house, but nobody was messing with me. The day of my release, I was up early in my VI visiting prison uniform, just walking around saying peace to everyone and giving away my bows and do-rags and everything else I had collected while I was there. The Russian dude from New York City had left a day before me, but true to his word, he came by my cube to say goodbye and gave me 3 numbers to contact him when I was ready to pursue the music label. I was glad to go, but I had met some real good dudes in jail and had some good times in here in spite of it all. I would miss them, and I knew that I would probably never see any of them again. I heard the magic words over the loudspeaker around noon. Inmate Duncan, report to R&D. It was a call I've been waiting for over 2.5 years. I was going home at last. The CO and the R&D gave me the money I still had on my books and the box with clothes Black had sent me. I walked out the same door I used when I walked in. When I got outside, I saw Junie and Lee. Junie gave me a new leather jacket to throw on before I got into the truck and headed home. I didn't even look back, I was out. I felt like Lot's wife from the Bible. If I looked back, something bad would have happened to me. Doing time in prison was a form of psychological torture. You had to stay somewhere you didn't want to be, even though there was no gates or anything to stop you from leaving. So in essence, you had to mentally wrap the fence around your brain and fight the urge to leave fight the urge to avoid the consequences. There was no marking on the campus where you were considered out of bounds, you just knew. Although surviving prison is not an accomplishment worth bragging about, I still felt good that I'd done my time with integrity. I didn't lie or pretend to be someone I wasn't just to fit in the crowd. I chose whom I interacted with carefully. I've done my time and I left quietly. I exited. I wish they would forget me like I was never there. I wanted to put this all behind me, but getting out of jail as a convicted felon would add so many barriers to my uncertainty. In jail, once I adjusted to my surroundings, it was easy to follow my daily routine. Now I had to go out and face the real world. As I stared out the window with little to say during the 3-hour drive back to Buffalo, I wonder what the future will hold for me. How was I going to support myself? Would I be able to get a job? Where was I going to live? Would I wind up back in jail? To say I was worried would be an understatement. I drifted off to sleep in my thoughts, and when I woke up, we were getting off the I-90 to the 33 expressway headed downtown. I was back in Buffalo. Junie was driving and said, Tone, you got about an hour before you have to go to the halfway house. Where are you going? Take me to my grandma, ma'am.
Wow. I'm so glad that you wanted to go to your grandmother's. I think that's very touching. And I love that phrase, you felt like Lot's wife, afraid to look back. Do you want to talk a little bit about the prison experience and how it seemed to have a profound influence on you spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So first of all, let me kind of set up the prison I was at. I was at a federal prison camp, which we didn't have any walls. It was a camp setting, like a dormitory setting, where there was probably about 200 to 300 people on the camp, and this was for nonviolent offenders. But the catch was that in a normal prison setting, you're able to, lock yourself in, and you're in the cell, your cellmate, and as long as you don't have no issues with your cellmate, you can get you a good night's sleep. However, in this camp setting, since it was like a dormitory, there was no gates, there was no fences, no lock-in, anything. So if you had a problem with somebody, there was never anything stopping from anyone getting to you. So if you had a problem with somebody in the middle of the night, it was nothing stopping that person from coming into where you were sleeping at and doing stuff to you. People were getting hit in the head with locks and socks. They was burning people's beds up. It was like wide open. And since it was a camp, there was no gate. People had weapons, cell phones, all type of drugs. I mean, it was really wide open. A lot of the people and the way the system worked was, as you got closer to coming home, you would work your way down from a maximum security to a medium to a low to the camp. But like people that would work their way down, once they got to the camp, they didn't like it because they couldn't lock themselves in. So you were never comfortable. So with that, you had to, and make sure, like, you had to interact with everybody and make sure that, and you had to extra make sure that you didn't have a problem with anybody. If it even seemed like you had a problem with somebody, you had to make sure you went to that person and make sure you and that person was okay before you went to bed, because you never know, what would happen. And I didn't, specifically, as I got to the camp, you start interacting with people, and the people I started interacting with, it was a couple of people that was, they was going to church, and I kind of hit off with, and then my brother, who was my co-defendant, was there already. He got there a couple of months before me. So he was going to church, and I met a couple of brothers then when I was started working in the cafeteria, and they was also going to church. So that was, my way of, okay, God, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm not gonna be here for long. This is my bottom, and I'm gonna make the best of this. And I know God, and I had to turn to Him, to protect me of all things, to be there, to guide me. And because when I got there, I was lost. I didn't know what my life was gonna hold. Being in prison, getting out, So I had to lean on him. So that was kind of how that began.
Mhm.
How old were you at that time? May I just ask?
2000, I was 31.
30.
30, yeah, 30.
Thank you.
Were people around the same age, or were some younger and older? Other prisoners?
The age range was probably from 20 to about 70 or 80.
Really?
Yeah, so like I said, it was a prison camp and it was for non-violent offenders. So it was stockbrokers in there, doctors, lawyers, a little bit of everything, and from the whole Eastern Seaboard, New York City, Baltimore, Philly, Washington, D.C., from all over. I was in Pennsylvania, outside of Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Mm. That must be terrifying to know something could happen to you. Where were the guards? Were there no guards making sure nothing happened?
I mean, there was guards, but I mean, it comes a time and everybody goes to sleep. I mean,
Mhm.
you have lockdown, and even though it wasn't, like I said, we didn't have any cells. What happened is the light would come on. They had this big light, and when the light came on, the flash and start flashing, that means everybody had to go to their bed. And what they would do, they would come by and they would count you. They would have count time was like, I think 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then 6 in the morning. I think they would count us 3 times a day.
Mhm.
And basically they just counted to see if you was still around. And then they went back to their posts.
Mm. Mhm. Well, when you wrote about your prison experience, I was very curious. Do you have any feelings, any ideas of how prison reform, how prisons could be reformed?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I can go so many ways with that as a criminal defense attorney, as a former inmate, as just so many ways I could go with that. I mean, it's good. They've been making some strides as far as like the drug laws and stuff. And I mean, the original Rockefeller laws and the things that got people in, you know what I mean, in jail because of the disparity of crack and powder, and those things are still, you know what I mean, they are telling on people because people are still, you know what I mean, hurting from those old antiquated laws and stuff. So it's some progress being made. I mean, the jails there, you know what I mean, as we know, they're full. And then we have these private, then they started doing the private jails
Mhm.
now, and that's big business. And I mean, it's so many things that you kind of have to you got to pick your fight as far as some prison reform.
Mhm.
Really.
Mhm. Mm. You talked a lot about the crack epidemic in your own home, and then I was really struck about what you said about your neighborhood, how it changed your neighborhood. That really struck me. Would you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, like when I go into my old neighborhood and there's like blocks and blocks of like empty lots and abandoned houses and stuff. And from me, since I grew up in the neighborhood, I can point to that lot or point to that abandoned house and remember who used to live there.
Mm.
And I kind of blame myself for some of it because I can say so and so used to live there and I used to sell them drugs, and that contributed to them not taking care of their household, not taking care of themselves, so on and so forth, making the neighborhood go down. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't the only one, but I did contribute to that.
Mhm.
And so I mean that's huge. Even and I still, because I go to, you know, I live in the suburbs, but I go to church in my old neighborhood.
Mhm.
So I'm down there 2-3 times a week, doing stuff with the church and still interacting with the people I grew up with. and still trying to right some of those wrongs. And again, I see the streets and stuff and how the neighborhoods has been run down. And, you know, I mean, I feel bad that I feel like I contributed to some of that. And the fact that some of the kids grew up like looking up to what I was doing. I feel like I need to give back to them also. Like, you know, I mean, the kids, they used to see me standing on the corner and they wanted to be like me. And so how did they turn out? Did some of them go to jail because they was trying to be like me? Did some of my influence cause them to go in the wrong direction? You know, so I'm still, you know what I mean, I'm trying to be that influence now to say, okay, no, this is, you know what I mean, you can go this way. You don't have to, you know what I mean, even if you made a mistake, you can right that wrong and change your life and do better now. You don't have to, you know what I mean, emulate, you know what I mean, the drug dealer on the corner that you used to look up to. And even if you did, look, that drug dealer that you used to look up to, look at him now. He's an attorney. So and so you can do that also. So that's kind of what I do now. I try to do now.
We have a participant question from Jasira. She says, what has been particularly challenging for you about practicing law?
Nothing really. The crazy part is the same attributes I used to use, like being out in the streets and doing things in the streets, I use those attributes as an attorney.
Really?
So yeah, so when you're out in the streets and just for instance, to get somebody to buy my drugs instead of buying the other guy's drugs. It's a relationship. It's a talking. You can get the same thing from him. You can get it from me. So why get it from me instead of him? So now you got all these attorneys out here. Why would you pick the Arthur instead of the other attorney? Well, it's about relationships. You know what I'm saying? It's about how I talk to you, how you trust me, how you understand me. So when I was to sell the drugs, I would like tell the person, oh, okay, you know, I got you. I'm gonna take care of you. You need anything, so on and so forth. I got the best product, so on and so forth. So now as an attorney, you know what I'm saying? I'm still personable. And I'm like, you know what I mean? I understand you, you know what I mean? I'm gonna work for you. So it's the same. You have to be you know what I mean, the personable person to talk and to be able to, you know what I mean, talk to people and stuff and relate to them. And so, I mean, it's like I said, so some of the attributes that I kind of learned being out in the streets, you know what I mean, I've used them, you know what I mean, for my benefit as becoming as an attorney.
That's fascinating. Could you talk a little bit about your process? It was really, I mean, I'm amazed at your stick-to-itiveness, your grit. You finally did land a job that was difficult to get a job, right?
Yeah.
And then you started taking college courses, and you encountered a great mentor. Do you want to talk about him a little bit?
Which mentor? My teacher mentor?
You've had a lot of good mentors. I was very impressed with that. Yeah.
Yes, I have. It was so great that I had mentors that kind of passed me. Like during the process, I would get passed from one mentor to the next, and they would give me what I needed to get to the next step. And so my first mentor would be, of course, Dr. Gene Grabner from ECC, who I had him for probably about I only went to ECC for 2 years, but I had him for 7 classes. I don't know how I just kept lining up in this class, but me and him, we formed such a great relationship, and we would talk, and he is the individual that looked into whether I could become an attorney with a felony when I started going to ECC, and he was just so inspiring And he was like, whatever I need, whoever I had to call, that he would do it. And he wrote letters to get me into UB, he wrote letters to get me into law school. I mean, anything I needed, he would do it. So, I mean, he was great. And then my next mentor after him was Judge Ogden. When I got into law school, and she, basically mentored me into, becoming an attorney. And then even my friend Ray, who's my daughter's godfather, he was a practicing attorney, and he kind of mentored me as, how it is as, a practicing attorney. And so, I was able to have all these people to turn to and call during this whole process. The process, me taking the chance of not becoming licensed, because what Dr. Grabner found out was that that it was discretionary whether New York State would let me practice with a felon. So, and the only way that I could find out was to go through the process. So, and even when he came to me, he said that, well, the Arthur is not a bar in New York State, it's discretionary. You're gonna have to go in front of the Character and Fitness Committee, but you don't go in front of that Character and Fitness Committee until you complete the process.
Wow.
So I had to get my bachelor's, I had to get my JD, I had to take and pass the New York State bar, amass all this student debt, and then go in front of this Character and Fitness Committee 7 to 8 years later. And basically they could have told me no. They could have said, no, get out of here. Don't come back. And through the process, you always get lip service. So, and like my friend Ray always say, we circumvent the process. So, if we can't, we always say, if you can't get through it, you go around it. But don't let nobody stop you. So, and like I said, so I had lip service. I had people tell me they would write me a letter, a recommendation that they would do this for me, they would do this, and they didn't do it. But, it never stopped me when they didn't do it. And so, and also along the way, I was so blessed that I remember doing law school, and it's in a book that I got invited to a party at Assemblywoman Crystal People Stokes' house. And when I arrived there, I pulled up, and then it was a black Tahoe that pulled up right behind me. And so the first thing I'm thinking, oh, that's the police. So, I'm thinking back my old ways. So I didn't want to get out of my car. I don't want to see it. It's just the police. So it wasn't the police. It was actually the mayor, Byron Brown. So I seen the mayor. I said, oh my God, I got a one-on-one with the mayor all by myself. There's nobody around. I get to talk to the mayor. So I jumped out of my car. I ran over to the mayor. I'm like, Mayor Brown, my name is Arthur Duncan. This when I was the president of the Black Law Student Association at this time. I was like, Mayor Brown, my name is Arthur Duncan. I'm the president of the Black Law Student Association at UB Law School. Glad to meet you. And the first thing he asked me, he said, so Arthur, when you graduated from UB Law School, are you leaving Buffalo? I was like, no, Mr. Mayor. I was like, I'm gonna stay here and make a change. He was like, really? He was like, let me give you my card. So he gave me his card, and I went into the party, and I met Assemblywoman Crystal People Stokes, and then I also met Councilman Damone Smith that day. And I tell you, all three of them gave me jobs.
Wow.
One after the other. So after that, I left. I called Councilman Damone Smith. He gave me a job for the summer. After summer was over, Assemblywoman Crystal People Stokes called me. She gave me a job for the fall semester. After that job was over, I called the mayor. He gave me a job as a City of Buffalo law clerk in the law department right after that. So I went to that party, and I met those three individuals, and all of them gave me jobs. And the thing is, and what I try to tell people is, you got to change your surroundings. You know what I mean? You got to interact with people that can help you. And if you're hanging out with people that can't help you, if nobody in your circle is talking about a job or doing something positive, you're in the wrong circle. You're in the wrong surroundings. So just by placing myself and going to that party and opening my mouth and talking and stuff, I was able to have a career, because that law clerk position at the city of Buffalo, that's where I worked until I graduated from law school. And after I graduated from law school and got barred, then the mayor gave me a job as assistant corporation counsel for the city of Buffalo. So, you know what I mean? So it's all about, you know what I mean, your surroundings and who you're putting yourself in with. And so, and that's important.
That's a wonderful point, because it seemed like how you fell into selling drugs was the people you were,
Exactly.
were your friends. Yeah. Who you were running with. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And I was struck when you were in law school, you could maybe talk about Cleveland. When you went to law school in Cleveland, that was really amazing. You've got a great wife too. Very supportive. But anyway, you talked about how in your first class, the students would line up to talk to the professor, and you thought they were just, trying to get in good with the professor. You say it was a cultural thing that you learn later. You learn later that you have to do that.
Yeah. And I didn't understand that. And I'm like, what they all lining up trying to speak to the. I was like, I don't need to talk to the professor. I can get this, and I had to find out that like the law is kind of what your professor kind of says it is at that point. Kind of his interpretation of it. So even, you're reading the books and stuff, and then you have the legal decision and stuff, but it's still, he's the teacher, and his interpretation and his way of thinking, and he's thinking in a different way of it. So you have to you got to have, again, it's all about relationships. You have to have that relationship, and I didn't think I needed that relationship. And so it was a learning experience, and I should have known that from the relationship I had with Dr. Grabner at ECC. I should have known that, but I didn't. And also, in Cleveland, I kind of wasn't trying to get relationships, because I was like, I'm not staying in Cleveland, so I don't need to, know these people, or get no relationship in Cleveland, because my whole thing when I went to Cleveland Law School was I was just trying to transfer back to UB to get back to my family. So that's why, while I was in Cleveland, I was, my first semester, I stayed in hotels and motels, and I was driving back and forth from Cleveland to Buffalo like 3-4 times a week. And as I said, my grades, they really suffered. I almost flunked out because I couldn't afford an apartment in Cleveland. To the second semester, I was able to get an apartment, and my grades got better. But in Cleveland, I was just trying to get that first year down, because it was easier to transfer back into UB to get in initially, because I got three rejection letters from UB Law School. And I was hurt. I was hurt. It was like my dream. It was the UB Law School. That was the only show in town. And it was like, if I don't get in here, what am I going to do? And so after I graduated from UB undergrad, I didn't get in, and I sat out a year, and I reapplied, and I was just trying to get in, and it wasn't looking too good. So again, I got my my second rejection letter, and then I went to Cleveland State for my first year of law school. And then I got my third rejection letter to transfer. And then somehow, some way, I got in. I don't know, by God's grace, because even after my first year when I transferred, I got a third rejection letter trying to transfer. But I got in.
I think those are lessons. I'm sure you've shared them with students that are important, who you're hanging out with, and keep at it. Keep at it.
Yeah, don't never give up. I mean, and never. There's always, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, whether you just go straight forward with it, whether you turn some corners or whatever you have to do to accomplish that goal, I mean, just do the research and do it. And like I have a lot of friends who've been in trouble before also, with some legal troubles, and I tell them now, just do the research. Because I have a couple of friends now that are registered nurses, they're felons. And then there's other individuals that's felons that's doing welding and different things. And I try to help them as much as possible. I tell them about, you can get a certificate of relief from disabilities that would stop an employer from discriminating against you because of your legal past. Now there's some sealing going on, as far as you can seal one felony and one misdemeanor. So, they won't be able to look up, employers won't be able to see that in your past. There's some legislation about expunging some marijuana convictions. So this is things so your background won't keep coming up on you and haunting you. And most importantly, I tell people, you have to disclose. So like I said before, like all the individuals that helped me along this journey, I would disclose to them. I would tell them, because I didn't want them to be like, someone come to them and say, did you know that the Arthur was a convicted felon? You know what I'm saying? No, I'm telling you first, so you know that this is what's going on, and this is what I did, and I'm trying to change, so you wouldn't, be blindsided by anything. So that's the number one thing, to disclose. Own it. You did it. Own it. And that's what I did in my book, Felon-Attorney. That I did it. I own it, and I did these things, and I changed my life. And even to this point, as a criminal defense attorney, like I give my clients, I give them a copy of my book. And I said, I've been where you are now. And you probably haven't done half the stuff I've done. So you can, if I can change, you can change. And I'll give them a book, and I say, here, take some time, sit down and read it. And nobody likes to read. Everybody says, make an audio book. Make an audio book. When is the movie coming out? No, sit down and read. And so, you'll be able to picture it yourself, and get you a good read in. And this book is local, and you'll start, you'll recognize, the area and what's going on and stuff. And so, and I tell them, I try to remove all the excuses. I say, I graduated from law school at the age of 43 with a wife and 5 kids. As a convicted felon growing up on the east side of Buffalo. If I can do it, you can do it too. So, where's the excuse? You say, well, I'm too old. No, I did it. I was 42. They said, well, I got all these kids. I had 5 kids. I'm from this neighborhood. I'm from the neighborhood. I'm still gang affiliated. I still have tattoos on my arms from my neighborhood. So I'm still gang affiliated to this day, even as an attorney, even as a deacon. The crazy part is you always talk about your past. For some time I had dreams that stuff that I did, even people that I might have hurt,
Mm.
and don't remember who I hurt still remember me.
Mm.
And now I'm out here trying to do the right thing. I'm a family man, a deacon, an attorney, and that person, somebody might have a bad day, and like, that guy jumped on me 10 years ago, and I never forgot it. And what if he wants to do something to me? He's having a bad day.
Mm.
So, only by, by God's grace, I'm just trying to live right. And, I'm saying, I just pray that, those things don't come back up on me.
Mm.
We have a couple of questions from our participants. So this one's from Cheryl. She says, "Thank you for your book and the enjoyable conversational style of writing that you used. Although you've had a life that at times was on the edge and was full of uncertainty, you seemed very grounded by and appreciative of family ties. Can you explain how you maintained hope for a better life, and what was your driving force towards that, and whether you strive to instill that in your own family? Thank you."
I had no choice. I wasn't going to give up. I mean, this wasn't it. So, one thing, I was always smart, but, falling into the wrong crowd and want to be the cool, being with the cool crowd or the popular crowd, influenced me to do bad things. But I was always smart. I mean, like my name, The Arthur. I'm a nerd. The Arthur. Who else? That's a nerdy name. I mean, I used to, everybody used to copy off my paper, like in class. So I used to write the wrong answer and let them copy it and then erase it and then turn it back in. And they would all fail. And then I would get 100 and then they would want to beat me up. So like this, to the point that when I first got out of jail, I was like, I went to college because I said, I have to do something to deflect from this felony. So now it's like every time I go for a job, every time I do something, first thing they're going to see on a job application is, I'm a convicted felon. So I need something to deflect, from this felony. So it was like, if I can get some letters behind my name, an associate's, a bachelor's, or something, then that would help me. So that was my first thing as far as like going back to school. But like in a bigger sense though, what I'm saying, I just knew I just couldn't give up on myself. And I always wanted better for myself. Even when I was hustling, I would tell myself I'm gonna stop after I see this amount of money, or I'm gonna stop in 6 months, or I'm gonna stop next year, or I'm gonna save this money and go back to school. So in the back of my mind, it was always a different end game. It wasn't never that I was gonna just keep doing this and that was just the end of it. But I got caught up and I kept doing it longer than I wanted to do it. And then I eventually wind up in jail. I guess like I always say, God got tired of waiting on me and put me in jail. So that wasn't my end game. And I needed something, and that was my wake-up call, me going to jail for the time that I went. But I needed something, that I was going to change my life. But when I was going to do it, I just kept kind of like putting it off. And then even after I got got into trouble and stuff, it was like, this is not the end game. There's something out there better for me. And now I got to take care of my family. And, I went from like somebody that never worked and I was like out in the streets. So when I was driving for week here, I was working like 60, 70 hours a week. And it was to the point that I wasn't going to go back to jail, but I knew I had to take care of my family. So, then I had to there was a bigger picture of what I was going to do. And then, again, I went back to school, and then I guess the rest is kind of history.
Another question from Barbara. After getting out of prison, how did you manage and finance your law schooling?
I still owe. I'm, I'm hoping Biden, he gonna forgive the loans.
Please pray for them.
and importantly, I'm glad that question was asked. People were saying you cannot get financial aid as a felon. I don't know how many times I heard that bad information. When you fill out the application for financial aid, when you get into for college, people were saying there's a question that asks you about, convictions and stuff. That question was geared towards, they didn't want you to have a conviction while you was receiving financial aid. So if you had a conviction before you applied for financial aid, you were fine. But they didn't want you like taking the money from your Pell and all that and using it on drugs and stuff. So that's where the issue was, because I like argue people, like people were sit there arguing with somebody who got it. I'm in law school with financial aid that I got from the government, and I've received it, but you're telling me I can't get financial aid, and I have no one, and I got it. So, and I try to explain to them, look, this is what they're talking about. You can get it. They just don't want you, if you don't have a conviction while you're receiving financial aid. That was the difference. But you can get in loans, grants, all that, and especially the loans, because I got loans up the wazoo right now. I'm still trying to pay back. So yes, you can get it, and they will give you a lot of. They will give you as much as you need. You gotta do. Yeah. So and again, you can get financial aid as a felon, and that's bad information. That's one thing I hate, and I spoke at a college here in Buffalo, who one of the lady came to me, though one of the leaders of the legal department came to me, and I'm not going to say the college's name. They were saying, she said, "D. Arthur, I need you to come talk to my students. We've been telling these kids all wrong." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "We've been telling them that you cannot become a lawyer. You have a felony. And here you have not a high school, a college was telling these kids this."
Really? Yeah.
And it's just bad. And that's why I tell people, I was like, no matter who tell you something, do your own research. You have to do your own research. You have to. And I mean, that's vital. And, it's so important that just don't take what I always say, what they say. You know what I mean? Because nobody named their child they. So you can't listen to they. So it's just a lot of bad information, and like do your own research.
This question's from Marion. Can you give an example of someone where you feel you were able to make the big difference in changing their direction?
Yeah, like I have a couple of friends that's our felons now that one became a nurse as a felon. One is doing well. I don't know. I can't just say that he did it because of me, but I mean, he's doing quite well. He's a welder. He's a very, very good friend of mine. I will hope that, I'm setting an example for people, and not just that someone just come to me and say, a lot of people come to me and say, I'm inspired by you, and I'm glad you changed your life around, and so on and so forth. But then there's the people that they're inspired by you, but but they're not going to tell you that. So I mean, I just hope that I'm leading by example now, that people can look at me and say you can change your life, and that I grew up. They can say I grew up around the corner from him. And look at him now. Or they can tell their kids, I know him. I grew up with him. I went to elementary school with him. He can do it, you can do it. And so, I'm accessible. And that's one thing that, you know what I mean, as far as Facebook and the social platforms, people reach out to me all the time. I get probably about 5, 6 inboxes a week from people all over the country asking me questions. This saying that, you know what I mean, they had some issues in the past, and can I give them any advice, and what would I suggest? And I answer everybody. You know what I mean? I take the time because you know what I mean, I want, you know what I mean, it's the same situation. I have to pay it forward. That, you know what I mean, that people, you know what I'm saying, that some of the information I had to learn the hard way, you know what I'm saying, I want to give it away. It shouldn't be that hard for some of this information, for, you know, you have to actually go through it to learn it. People should be like telling it. And that's why I do the speaking engagements. And that's why if someone inbox me, asks me any questions, you know, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Because some things shouldn't be that hard. And like I said, we all make mistakes. And I mean, even on the other thing, I always talk to people that's in a position to help you. And that's important too. So even when you have a person that's trying to change his life, you need that person that can help them along the way too. And one thing I always say, I can't mess this up because I'm like the poster child. It's like if I mess it up, they're like, okay, see, we let the Arthur get a law license and he messed up, and so now no, so I'm kind of like the poster child, and it's like, look how good the Arthur was doing, so we can, you know what I mean, so we can help somebody else too. So of course we have to properly vet everybody, but we can't burn no bridges. And so, I mean, that's kind of, you know what I mean, what I do. I'm here for anybody that has any questions and is want to pursue. And everybody don't have to want to, you know what I mean, you made them say everybody don't have to be a lawyer, but find something you can do that's positive, that, and I always say, go with your A game. Define something you do better than everybody else and pour into that. You know yourself better than anybody else. So find your A game and pour into that, and be the best you can be in that position.
This question's from Joanne. What are your thoughts about what can be done to help your neighborhood?
That's a very, very good question. Well, one thing we're doing is my church. We're actually building a new sanctuary on the corner of Jefferson and William. And our old church, we're changing that to a family life center, which we're going to have like computer classes and like a gymnasium and doing different things in the neighborhood, so people in the neighborhood can come take advantage of that. So as far as being in the neighborhood and the people in my neighborhood going to, my church and reaching out, and like I'm still, interact with people in my neighborhood. Like I still go down to the park and talk to the kids on the corner, talk to the kids at the park, so on and so forth. Show them, there's a better way. They're not gonna listen. We know that, but I'm showing them that there's an alternative. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go that route. You know what I'm saying? And even if you went that route, you can change and go this other route. So I talk to them. They still gonna, do what they're gonna do. But if they need help, changing over, what I'm saying? Because I have, I'm like the connection over to the legal part of the professional community, kind of, sort of. So it's kind of like, you want to change your life, I can introduce you to the people that can help you along your way for you to start doing, other things. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, so, because I know all the politicians, the judges, and everybody. So if you're trying to, change your life and straighten up or whatever, I'm saying, I'm the person that they can call on to and go to, and I can introduce you to that person that can refer you along your way to try to do that. So, I mean, as far as that and people trying to do positive things, and as far as, there's just, my neighborhood is so poverty stricken as far as the open lots and the abandoned buildings. That's going to take a lot. That's going to take some governmental grants and aids to kind of build that up as far as the landscape. But as far as the people and the young people coming up, my best thing I can do is be there, go down to the YMCA that's there, be active in the church, go in the neighborhoods, stop and talk to the kids. And again, just, just be that light at the end of the tunnel, and someone they can point to that change their life, and be there for them. And like I said, I'm accessible. I talk to them. They call me on the phone. I'm not someone that you can't reach, and I'm going to help you out as much as I can.
Great. One item in your incident in your story that struck all of us, and we talked about it a little bit before we started, is the incident when you were driving for We Care.
Yeah.
Driver, and you had that horrible incident with the white man who not only insulted you. Do you want to talk about it? I'm impressed that you had such self-control.
Yeah. Yeah. So, living the way I was living, I got into a lot of fights, a lot of violent confrontations while I was out in the streets, selling drugs and stuff. And that was the lifestyle I was living. I went to jail, and and I changed my life, and I try to devote myself back to God and my upbringing. And I got a jail, and I was going to school and turned my life around and got married and was working for We Care. And it just happened at a point in time that I was applying to law school. So I had just graduated from UB undergrad, and I was trying to get into law school. When you apply to law school, you have to write a statement. And my law school statement opened up saying I'm a convicted felon. That was my opening sentence. And I talked about how I changed my life and how I changed from people, places, and things. And that wasn't a person that I was a different person now than I was before. And that I didn't hang out, and I wasn't doing all the things I did in the past. And so God was like, okay, we're going to see if you was lying. we're going to see if you were lying or not. So we'll see how truthful this is. So I was working for We Care, and I was taking one of the clients to a methadone clinic in the Central Park Plaza, snowing outside, and I pulled up, and I let her in the pathway where it wasn't any snow. And it's because she was going in and out. And so I was waiting for her, and then this white guy come walking across the street with his girlfriend, and he's going to the same clinic. And while I'm sitting there parked, he yells out, "Move that effing van." And I'm sitting there like, he's talking to me? He's like, "Yeah, I'm talking to you. Move that effing van." And then he calls me the N-word. So, I cursed back at him. We went back and forth. And kept going back and forth. And then finally, I couldn't take it. And I got out the van, and we were like face to face. And it wasn't really face to face because I'm 6'3", about 240. This guy was probably about 5'8", 140. But he was there with his girlfriend, and he wasn't backing down. And so we were face to face in the middle of the street, and I'm just thinking, I'm about to just really beat this guy up. And so, but he wasn't backing down. He was constantly calling me the N-word, and we was going back and forth. And God just like tapped me on the shoulder, like, what are you doing? And I just had like, and it just like dawned on me, I'm about to throw away everything. I was still on parole at the time. I was trying to get into law school. I had graduated from UB undergrad. And if I would have beat this guy up, everything would have been out the window. I would have got violated. You know what I mean? I wouldn't got into law school. I mean, this one thing just would have changed my whole life. So I backed off the guy, and I'm like, you got it. And I apologized to him and got back into the van. And then when he saw that I didn't want to fight, that's when he really just like turned into Superman. He just was really just like talking stuff and just like calling me all type of names and stuff. And then he went and he spit on the windshield of the van. And I kind of just hit the windshield wipers, didn't, you know what I mean, didn't pay no attention. And I forgot that when the client got out the van, she had rolled down the window on her side. So he went around to the side where the window was rolled down and spit in the van, and he spit on me. And all I could do was wipe it off and grin and bear it. And he had the nerve to call my job and said that I assaulted him, and he tried to almost lost my job. And again, that was at the time I was applying to law school, and I was still on parole. So if I would have fought that guy, obviously, needless to say, I wouldn't be right here at an attorney to this day.
Amazing.
Yep. So that was the ultimate test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The test. Yeah. Yeah.
We have some more participant questions here. This one's from Andrea. Could you tell us a little bit about your grandparents and what life lessons either of them may have given you that you remember still today?
My grandfather, he was a pastor. He was a minister, pastor of his own church. And he was such a hardworking man. He had 3 jobs. I mean, he worked at Buffalo Color or Allied Chemical. He worked at a car lot. Somewhere else he worked. He just worked so hard, and it's kind of like different from he paid like the bills in the church out of his own pocket. So it's like, you know, now we have these mega churches, and they get you know, money from the church. They, you know, that's kind of like some of it's their career, or, you know what I mean, they get paid from church. Well, my grandfather, he paid the bills at the church out of his pocket. He took care of the church out of his pocket. He mowed the lawn, he painted. He was just such a hard worker. And he always used to say to me, Tony, because he called me Tony, you think you ever amount to anything? And I'll say, I'm gonna try, Granddad. And so, but then he told me one time, he said, when you was little, you always say, Granddad, I'll be glad when I get bigger, so I can help you mow the lawn. Granddad, I'll be glad when I get bigger so I can help you like paint the fence and help around the house. He said, boy, you done got bigger and you ain't did nothing yet. You ain't left a finger. So he was, you know, he wanted the best for me, and he just, you know, I just wanted to make him proud, and I just got caught up, and like I said, it sounded like I ran out of time. The same way I was saying that I was gonna do this drug stuff for a little while and stop and then change my life, because I had people looking at me because they always want better things for me because I was so smart. It's kind of like my grandfather died too early before I changed my life. And then it was like, and then my grandmother, she was like one of them people that she couldn't find a fault in anybody. Like, you know what I'm saying? She, no matter what you did, she found something good out of it. Like, you know, and if you beat somebody up and you punched them 8 times, she would have been like, well, at least you didn't punch him 9. At least you didn't hurt him. You didn't hurt him that bad. So, I mean, she just found the good, you know what I mean, out of, you know, everything. And you know what I'm saying? And I just, and like now I kind of govern my household as my grandfather would. So, because I didn't like, you know, when I was young, I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up with my grandfather. So now with my kids and my wife and stuff, you know what I'm saying, I emulate my grandfather. As far as, you know, take care of the household and things I expect and stuff. And so that's, you know what I mean, he's something, the person I'll always look up to, I mean, the most is my grandfather.
This next question is from Barbara. What effect has COVID lockdown and virtual learning had upon the kids in your neighborhood? Any positive effects or negative? What are you doing differently there?
We struggling. I got a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old in the house. My 9-year-old, she's pretty smart, so she kind of gets it. But my 15-year-old is a boy. He's in high school. He has no attention span. So it's, and then another thing is during the COVID, I got sick last year. So I wasn't able, and I was in the hospital for some time. So he kind of fell behind also in like schooling, because I'm normally the one that helped the kids and stuff with the schoolwork. So, I mean, we were struggling. We struggling this year too, just trying to, my sons have, my kids have tutors now. And luckily we was able to find somebody who, you know what I mean, to tutor them, and that's not, you know, that expensive. But I mean, it's difficult with the COVID and trying to be a teacher, and then trying to also, you know what I mean, you have your own job, your career, and things you're trying to do. I mean, it's very difficult.
Sounds like you're a lot like your grandfather with all these jobs you hold at one time.
Yeah. I'm sure just trying to be like him. Yeah, can't go no wrong if I get close to what he did. I mean, my grandfather did all he did, and I think my grandfather, he had like a 4th grade education. And like I said, he had 3 jobs, and he left. He owned about 10 houses when he passed away. So he was able to amass, you know what I'm saying, some real estate and different things. So he did very well.
Yeah, it does sound like you're emulating your grandfather.
Yes.
I'm impressed with your family and your devotion to your family and your wife. There's a wonderful little passage where you talk about when you get out of prison, Joy or Jada runs down to greet you. And even though she wasn't your birth child, you felt like you had such love for her. I found that very moving.
Yeah, that's why I married my wife. That's why I have my stepdaughter. Yeah, I love her to death. And I mean, there's just some things that are like natural, and we just had a natural relationship. You know, even though I wasn't her biological father, and has grown to this day. And like I said, she just got married last year and made me a grandfather a month ago. So yeah, we're doing well.
Are there any more questions, Michaela?
Yeah, we have one more. This one's from Marion. She asks, was there any opportunity for learning productive skills in prison?
No. No. that's why a lot of people ask me, "Well, so you was the jailhouse lawyer in jail? Did you study law in jail?" No. No, the only thing I studied in jail was my Bible. Just trying to reinvent myself and make sure I came home and did some positive things. I wasn't looking into no law books or anything. I was just trying to better myself and have some type of plan and have a mindset of when I came home. That was my whole thing of being able to stay away from people, places, and things and my old habits is something that I got in jail, that I brung out of jail, that focus, that being in jail saying, I got to get out of here and I'm not coming back. And whatever I have to do not to come back, when I get out there, I will do it. And so that, that involved, you know what I mean? So when I got out of jail, I was catching a bus. So before, as a drug dealer, you driving around in fancy trucks and stuff like that. But now, once I got out of jail, I was walking and I was catching the bus and I was getting on the train. And, I was doing things that before you was considered like beneath me, because I was so high on the hog that, I had all this money. But so now, now I'm ground zero and, and I have to earn everything that I have, and I had to earn it the hard way. And I appreciated it more. I didn't have a bunch of money in a bag in the closet. So now you learn to do things the right way. You learn about credit and jobs and paying your taxes and doing things the right way, and just having stuff in an education that people can't take from you. That now I have things that, no one can take from me, that I earn. And, so you do things the right ways. And then just being able to be comfortable, you don't have to look over your shoulder for nothing. That, I always say, the police pull me over, y'all just practicing. and don't let me pull out my ID and stuff. Like, oh, Mr. Duncan, sorry. So, so
Jasira wants to know any political aspirations.
That's crazy. Everybody's asking me that, because I actually put a down payment. I was going to run for judge this year. And with the COVID, and when I got sick, I actually put a down payment on in North Buffalo. They have a new development. They building houses, and I actually had to put a down payment on a lot, because I was going to sell my house out here in the suburbs and move into the city and run for judge this year. But when the COVID, and then when I got sick, all that stuff kind of like went out the window. And I was telling my classmate, Joe Ferraletto, who's a councilman in North Buffalo, that he needs to find me a house to live in so I can run for judge. So, but yeah, I was going to run for judge, but I guess God has something else for me. So we'll see. So shameless plug though, Joel Moore is running for judge, and I'm backing him. Joe Moore and Philip Dabney is running for Buffalo City Court judges, and I'm behind them 100%.
Joel Moore?
Yeah, Joel Moore. I work with him in the city of Buffalo Law Department and the Board of Ed. And then Philip Dabney, who was a practicing defense attorney. He's actually a judge. He got appointed by the mayor, but he has to run again in November because he had an appointment. So, and then so I'm out in the suburbs. My vote don't even count. But at least I can do is get their names out there. So hopefully they can get and stay on the bench.
Great. Well,
thank you, Linda.
Yeah, and thank you. I really enjoyed your book, and I enjoyed your talk. And Mary,
Yes. The Arthur, I just can't thank you enough for spending time with us tonight. You really are a three-dimensional person with an incredible story, and it's just been a great pleasure. And I'm so sorry we couldn't meet at the center, but I did invite him to come and visit us at the center, as I'm inviting everyone with us tonight to come back, because we are open and we are in fact doing tours. All you have to do is let me know and I'll be happy to make those arrangements for you. And for the docents there, of course, I'm going to ask you all to take those tours for us. So a lot of really exciting things going on. But this has been one of my most favorite book nights events, just because you're so real and so genuine. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending time with us tonight. I truly appreciate it. I want to remind everyone to support your local independent bookstores. It's important. And that next month we will be meeting with another person with an interesting story. And her name is Evelyn McLean Brady. I think a number of you know her. She wrote the book, The Nun, the Priest, Love, Celibacy, and Passion. So it should be a very interesting evening. And Eleanor Ash will be facilitating that night. That's on May 6th. In the meantime, thank you again, The Arthur, and please come visit us at the beautiful Birchfield Penny Arts Center. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Linda. And thank you, The Arthur Duncan,
My
felon
pleasure.
attorney.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
It's the book.
Thank you all. Have a great night, everyone, and a wonderful holiday.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Right.